You're rolling.
Hey, good afternoon. This is the meeting of the City of Mobile's Board of Zoning Adjustment for Monday, April 5th, 2021. And we'll first call to order with the roll call. Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Coleman?
Yeah.
Mr. Golden?
Here.
Mr. Metcalf?
Here.
Mr. Milling? Absent. Mr. Burrows?
Here.
And I'm William Guest. So we have 6 out of 7 members present. We have a quorum. Requires 5 members to vote to affirm a motion, either to deny or approve a variance request. And then I'll move for the adoption of the agenda. Chair entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So move.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved as provided. All right. First, let me go over the rules for the general procedures for the meeting. Since this is a remote meeting, the rules are as such. When an applicant is called, staff will admit the concerned parties associated with the application to the meeting. Once parties have joined the meeting, I will briefly go over the board's rules again regarding the number of speakers. Each applicant is limited to a maximum of 4 speakers in support, 4 in opposition, limit to 5 minutes each. At the beginning of the public hearing, the applicant will present their case up to 3 additional speakers if applicable, which is a rare occasion. For each speaker at the end of the presentation, we'll ask if there's any questions of the board member, of the board members. Once the board concludes the questions of the speakers in support of the application, I will then call for interested parties to speak at the end of the speaker's presentation. I will again ask if there's any questions. The applicant will be given an opportunity for rebuttal in accordance with the board's rules with a 2-minute time limit. After the rebuttal, I will declare the public hearing closed. The board will go into deliberation. After the board has rendered a decision, the applicant and concerned parties will leave the meeting, and then we'll allow the next group into the waiting room. As a reminder, it takes 5 votes to approve it or to deny a variance, and as necessary, we may call for an individual by name vote whether or not we get a clear vote on a particular application. All right, first is, and I've got some noise in the background. They're like a pencil sharpener or something.
Mr. Burrows, if you could mute yourself, please.
Okay. All right, application 6364, which was a holdover for 2339 Dolphin Island Parkway. Mr. Henry Hamilton.
All right, and I just admitted Mr. Hamilton into the meeting.
Okay,
Mr. He is the only individual we have signed up to speak for this.
Okay, and Mr. Hamilton, your name and address for the record, please.
Mr. Hamilton, can you hear us?
Maria, I can't see his screen. Is he muted?
He is not muted. He called in, but I can see that he's not muted and he's in the meeting, but I can't see anything else other than that.
Mr. Hamilton, can you hear us at this point? All right. Well, we're going to proceed with this one. It was recommended for a holdover by the staff to the May 3rd meeting to allow Planning Commission to consider rezoning application. Any questions, comments of the board while we see if Mr. Hamilton can join us? Might be beneficial to hold over anyway, since the applicant's unable to communicate with us.
If Mr. Hamilton could try pressing *6 to see if that unmutes him. He has submitted an application to the Planning Commission for rezoning, and that's on the April 15th agenda for the Planning Commission. So that is why staff has recommended holdover until the May meeting.
Okay. As you stated, there's no one in the waiting room either in support or opposition to this application today, correct?
That's correct.
Have we had any communications from the community regarding this application?
No, sir.
All right. Chair, entertain a motion, hold it over to the May 3rd meeting.
So move, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion, hold over. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, next application. Ms. York, if you'll allow the next applicant into the waiting room and any interested parties.
Yes, sir.
Okay, for this next application, Mr. Camp did not respond to our inquiry if he wished to speak regarding his application. You did receive a total of 7 emails that I have forwarded to you. For the record, that's Yolanda Thomas, Connie Pugh, Joseph Mitchell, the Board of Linecoff Historic District Neighborhood Organization, Councilman Levon Manzi, Aaron Rose, and Tim Mans.
Okay, and this is application 6369 regarding 453 Dexter Avenue.
That's correct.
And the applicant Marie, is the applicant in the waiting room?
No, sir, I do not believe so. I have admitted Brenda Bolton to the meeting to speak.
Okay, and Ms. Bolton, is that one of the residents or the interested parties, either in favor or opposition?
She's a neighbor to speak.
Okay. Well, the question is, should we hold this over to the May 3rd meeting until the applicant has the opportunity to respond, or should we continue with the application at this time? Since we have Ms. Bolton, should we go ahead and at least allow the interested party speak at this time?
This is Doug. You can go ahead and proceed if you want to. He was aware of the meeting and he didn't reply to Bert's communication about speaking. So y'all can do what you want.
Okay. All right, Ms. Bolton, if you'll give us your name and address, please.
Yes, Brenda Bolton, 310 West Street.
All right, and are you in favor or opposition to this application?
I am opposed to the application.
Okay, you want to tell the board why you think we should deny the application?
Sure, thank you. I will just voice the concerns that have come to me through the Linecoff Historic District, as well as the Government Street Collaborative, which I'm associated with, and from several neighbors in person who contacted me. I think all of those concerns have been submitted to you in writing. I know it's a lot to read, so I just want to hit a couple of the high points. We had hoped when Mr. Camp carried over from March that perhaps he intended to reach out to us and plan a community meeting, but no one has heard from him, so I guess that's not his plan. We very strongly object to what is basically a tiny house plan. It is only 448 square feet, I think. It's even smaller than the garage that's at the back of the property, which is a substantial brick structure that the prior owners used as an apartment residence after the main residence burned. Unfortunately, that main residence, which was a really quite nice brick Tudor home, and is located next to another very nice brick Tudor home on Dexter Street, it was lost to fire. So even though there's no main residence per se on that property, other than the garage that was converted to live in, our hope would certainly be that someone would build a main residence that's in keeping with the structures on the rest of the street. The smallest residence on that street is 1,030 square feet. The nice brick Tudor right next door is over 2,200 square feet. There's no doubt that this kind of structure, two structures, one about 600 square feet, one 448, that really begins to look sort of like a trailer park plunked down in the middle of this residential street, is going to go a long way toward devaluing the property next door and along the street. And it's also, I'm afraid, going to set up, more of a downward spiral in the kind of redevelopment that we're hoping this end of Dexter Street begins to enjoy. I don't know if you're familiar with Dexter Street, but the front end of it off Government has had some very nice renovation for years, and that's moving down the street. There are several anchor homes at the south end of Dexter that are very nice, substantial brick structures. And so this housing stock is ideal for a good developer to come in and renovate these homes along the lines of what Restore Mobile is doing. Another thing we object to, other than just the size and this idea of putting, two structures on this deep, narrow lot, Mr. Brown mentioned that the style he has in mind and what his narrative shows is a shotgun style to be in keeping with the neighborhood. Well, obviously he hadn't written around Linecoff because there are no shotgun style homes in Linecoff. It's an American craftsman style historic district. And this little shotgun style home would not be in keeping with the neighborhood. Even if it were a substantial size, it still wouldn't be stylistically in keeping. Now, you might say, well, the ARB will catch that, but why let this variance go to that level? This is our job at this level to recognize that it's not in keeping and to stop it. The developer really needs to know that his plan is not a good plan. He shouldn't have to wait and go all the way to the ARB to get that word from them.
1 minute left.
And so I think that when you look at the people who have objected, the board of the Linecoff Historic District, and as a group objected to this. Mr. Manzi, our district councilman, joined in supporting us in opposing this. And of course, I objected to it as a resident on West Street, even though I'm not real close to that area, but all of the area residents around there, I think a large portion of them have written you letters of opposition. So I hope that you'll recognize and understand and appreciate our position on this and deny this variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Any questions of the board for Ms. Bolton? Okay. Well, I guess and Ms. Bolton was the only one in the waiting room. Is that correct, Ms. York?
Yes, sir. That's correct. The only one for that meeting.
All right. If you'll clear the waiting room, the board will go into deliberation. And the staff has recommended this for denial. The applicant was aware of the meeting, has not responded staff, and has not attended today. So we can proceed as presented. Chair, entertain a motion. And if you will, clear the, or I guess we had a couple people that were muted. I'm not sure if you, Marie, if you muted them or they did on their own.
Most have muted themselves.
Okay. All right.
Chairman,
Yes.
I move to deny the application.
I have a motion to deny. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Application is denied. All right, we're on application 6372, 1011, St. John's Deliverance Temple, and my understanding this one is also recommended for holdover. Is the applicant present today?
Just admitted Jerry Bird for it.
Okay, Is there anyone of interest to this application in the waiting room as well?
He is the only one we have signed up, sir.
Okay. All right, Mr. Bird, your name and address for the record, please.
Gerald Bird, Bird Surveying Incorporated, 2609 Hosmer Road, Mobile.
Okay, and this is regarding the application 6372 1011 2621 Ralston Road. Is that
That's
correct?
correct. That's for St. John's Deliverance Temple.
Yep.
Aware that they've asked for holdover, and this was at the Planning Commission last Thursday. And yes, if we have 1 month holdover, they're working on getting another letter. They can't find the letter that they had for the authorizing parking across the street on another person's property. And they're working on getting another letter on that, and hopefully it'll all be pulled together by next meeting.
All right, the applicant's in agreement with the holdover, or the applicant's rep, I should say. Any questions of the board for the applicant? Okay, and staff has stated that we have no one in the waiting room of interest, either in support or opposition. Did we receive any communications regarding this application?
No, sir. Communications.
Okay. Chair, entertain a motion for a holdover.
So moved.
A motion to hold over. Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion's carried. Applicant's held over to the May 3rd meeting. All right, Marie, if you'll clear the waiting room and allow our next applicant to enter. And this is for application 6373, 1 Ridgeline Drive East. And do we have any interested individuals in the waiting room in addition to the applicant's rep?
No, sir. No one signed up to speak regarding this in opposition, and no comments were received regarding the Ridgeline application.
Okay. And I guess the staff did not give us a clear recommendation on this one, the way I read it. Is that true? Or did y'all recommend approval?
The Ridgeline is recommended for approval.
Okay, there's just a lot of conditions. All right, Mr. Sheridan, are you in the waiting room?
I do not see the applicant in the room, and I do not have anybody else signed up for this application.
Brett Orrell was the representative for Mr. Sheridan for both this application and the next one. And he was provided the meeting information had indicated an interest in speaking.
Okay, Ms. York, are you able to identify him in the waiting room?
I am not. I have several unknown people in the waiting room, and I have not been able to get any feedback from them on who they may be and what items they're here for.
Well, this individual, as Bert stated, has got 2. All right. You want to go through each of you said there's 3 that you're unable to identify?
Let's see, there's a phone number ending in 2766. A phone number ending in 2343.
Well, can I recommend you admit all 3, and then we'll see if we can determine who's for what application?
Okay, sure. I'll do that now.
Since there's a limited number.
Sure. Okay, so I have admitted a few people to try to see if we can't figure this out. The individual with the last 4 digits of your phone number ending in 2766, can you identify yourself, what item you're here for? (2766), last 4 digits.
Hey,
Can you
yeah,
identify yourself, please?
this is Eric with Jackson with Row Engineering. I'm here for sorry, the number 7.
He's for the last item.
Okay, great. I'll move you back to the waiting room then. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. 19258. Can you identify yourself, please?
That's Victoria.
Okay, thank you. And then let's see, Big D. Can you identify yourself, please?
They're not showing that they have audio.
No, they're not.
So for the Ridgeline Drive application, again, we received no comments in opposition or concern regarding the application. Again, it's represented by Brett Orrell of Poly Surveying.
Okay, but he's not present at the moment.
Correct.
Okay. Well, this is recommended for approval, and we have no one in the waiting room either in support or opposition. There are conditions listed by the staff. Any questions of the board? Any thoughts, comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think we need to discuss all the opposition that's been on this application.
Is it this one or is it next one?
Opposition on this application, Mr.
Next.
Metcalf.
I jumped ahead of you. Apologies.
Okay, so we're on application 6373. This is One Ridgeline Drive East.
Okay.
And we have no opposition, no written communication, correct? Bert?
That's correct.
And the staff's recommending for approval with conditions.
That's correct.
All right. So with that, I would suggest that we have a motion either to approve or to deny and move on.
Mr. Chairman, I move.
I didn't hear that, Mr. Metcalf.
I move approval.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
You have a second.
I have a motion to, I have a second. Any further discussion? This will be subject to all staff recommendations and conditions.
Yes.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, Mr. Burrows is opposed, so that means 5 in support and 1 in opposition or to deny. Motion carries. All right. Next application is 6374. This is for 116 Myrtlewood Lane. And we have received quite a bit of communications on this application. And the staff also recommends for denial. Has the applicant's rep joined us yet?
He has not been let into the meeting yet.
Not yet, no, sir. I still do not have the applicant. I'm letting in some neighbors who have signed up to speak, though.
Okay.
You received a total of 18 comments regarding this application, all of them in opposition.
Okay.
They were received from Earl McAndrew, Barclay Shreve, Dr. Eduardo Baronano, Will Kinnemer, Mr. and Mrs. Lewis T. Shreve, Wyatt and Georgia Ingwell, Steve Gordon, Greer Helmsling, Carol Barrett, Dr. and Mrs. Adrian Baudet, Henry and Melinda Kush, Cynthia Tucker, Catherine Zarzor, Chrissy Counts, Rick True, Ruth Wilbanks, Burke Witherington, and Vicki Barrett. And then you should have a petition with 30 signatures on it.
Okay.
And then the people who have signed up to speak in opposition are Henry Cush, Louis Shreve, Cynthia Tucker, and Fred Helmsing.
Okay.
And I just let in Brett Orell for the applicant. And the only other speaker that has signed up to speak that I do not see is Henry Cush.
Okay. And what was the applicant's rep's name again?
Brett Orell is here for the applicant.
Okay. If we can get the applicant first. Brett, can you hear us now?
I'm not sure if he has audio.
He has disappeared.
He just left the meeting. Maybe he's trying to log out and log back in to fix his audio issue.
All right, let's give him a minute to do that.
Ah, here he is again. All right, Brett, can you hear us? Brett?
There you go. Hello.
There you are.
I'm on the call. I've been on since 1:55. It's the 228 number ending in 2343.
Gotcha.
I couldn't get through on the last Ridgeline. I was trying everything I could. Did that get approved?
Yes.
I can let you in on the 228 number if you want to. There you go.
Perfect.
All right, Mr. Orell, your last application was approved with conditions as established by the, or recommended by the staff. That's for 6373, the One Ridgeline Drive East.
Okay.
Okay,
that was
yes, sir, it was.
That was approved, correct? Okay, thank you.
We're on 63, yeah, we're on application 6374. This is for the 116 Myrtlewood Lane. And this one is recommended for denial. So you want to tell the board why we ought to consider otherwise. Your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Brett Orell, 5588 Jackson Road, Mobile 36619. Yes, so we submitted an application to the Planning Commission back in July of 2020 in regards to this particular subdivision. It was originally one lot with one residence located on it. We went through the process, got approval for the subdivision. At that time, Mr. Amberger, the city engineer, we had asked for a reduction in setback. He felt that the area in question, that a reduction was could be obtainable, and so we put together a plan that was presented to the variance board with that. As part of that application, we had a dedication of right-of-way 25 feet from the center line of the road. And then we are showing a 10-foot setback for a total of 35 feet from the center line of that existing road. The original home was located at that same location. So that was the reason for the presenting it that way. The current fence that's located at the property is at the current right-of-way. It's currently a 33.5, I believe, foot right-of-way, so very small, tight right-of-way. We were agreeing with the dedication, and so we had presented this, based on that. So based on the existing, the location of the previously located home.
Okay.
And so we are simply asking for the variance as submitted, or whatever the board deems a reasonable request.
All right, any questions of the board for the applicant, Mr. Applicant's rep, Mr. Orell? Okay, Mr. Orell, have you seen the correspondence we received from the residents and others regarding their opposition?
I did get that pretty late, probably within the hour. Mr. Hoffman had sent that over to me. I did my best to skim through and review to the best of my ability. I do see that there is quite a bit of opposition. So would kind of like to hear, I guess if I'm assuming there's some people here to speak. So, I just saw there were multiple people against the variance.
Okay, well, make two comments, and then we're gonna open it up for those in opposition to have their opportunity to speak. First of all, knowing that you got people in opposition, you have the opportunity to hold this over potentially if the board should choose, so that you have time to meet with the residents to maybe address any of their concerns. And two, there are 6 members participating today, and it takes 5 to affirm a motion. So if 2 were to vote to deny or 4 vote to affirm, you would not get your variance request. So just keep that in mind as we allow those that are in the waiting room to speak at this time. All right, Marie, allow the 4 that have been signed up and admitted.
Could Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
To allow that opportunity, would it be forthcoming to say that we would agree to a holdover? I don't want to waste anyone's time today, and I know there's a lot of people with kids out of school and things. If the opposition wants to speak, but I would be agreeable to a holdover if that would make things easier, and that way the developer could address the neighbors' concerns.
Okay.
Mr. Guest, this is Doug. I did talk with Mr. Sheridan last week to make sure he had spoken with the neighbors, and he told me he spoke with 3 or 4 neighbors like 2 Sundays ago. So just want to let everybody know that.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think Mr. Orell, since we've got individuals that have taken the time to sign in today and be available and also send their communications, we're going to at least allow them their time to voice their opinion. So, Ms. York, if you'll allow the first individual in. You're muted, Marie.
I've got Louis Shreve. Mr. Shreve, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Your
sir.
name and address for the record?
Sure. Louis Shreve, Shreve. I live at 118 Myrtlewood Lane, Mobile, 36608.
Okay, and you're in opposition to the application, is that my understanding?
That's correct. I'm opposed to front yard setback variance at 116 Myrtlewood Lane from a 25-foot setback to a 10-foot setback.
Okay. Now, where are you in relation to this property? How close?
I would be on the north side of that property.
Okay. So you're adjacent more or less to the property.
Yes.
Okay. And are the homes that are currently on that street normally 25 feet back from the street as far as the setback?
To the best of my knowledge, they are.
Okay. All right. Any questions of the board for Mr. Shreve? Okay. Thank you for your time. All right, Ms. York, do we have another individual?
Next, we have Cynthia Tucker.
Okay.
Ms. Tucker, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Hey, good afternoon, Ms. Tucker. You want to give us your name and address, please?
My name is Cynthia Tucker, 112 Myrtlewood Lane, Mobile, Alabama, 36608.
Okay, and you're calling, or you're...
I am vehemently opposed
okay, you
to
want
the
to tell us?
variance that Mr. Sheridan has requested. And let me also say, Mr. Sheridan has never spoken to me. I haven't heard one word from Mr. Sheridan about this property or his plans for it.
Okay, you want to tell us why we should consider this for denial? What's your opposition?
I live just on the south side of the property, so I'm right next door. Let me tell you first that I lived in Atlanta for a number of years, right in the heart of the city, in a great walking neighborhood that I loved. But when I moved to Mobile, there were things about my Atlanta neighborhood that I did not want to repeat. I was looking for a similar neighborhood, but there were things that I was looking to get away from. My neighborhood in Atlanta, I owned a house there, but the houses were very close together. It was very densely populated. I actually shared a driveway with my next door neighbor, so he and I couldn't get in or out of our garages at the same time. the houses were very close to the street, so that if a person sat on the front porch, he or she was practically sitting on the sidewalk. The other thing I didn't like was that it had once been a beautiful tree-lined neighborhood, but as more and more new houses were built, trees were torn down. So when I moved to Mobile, I was looking to get the good qualities of my old neighborhood, but not the bad ones. And I found exactly that on Myrtlewood. It's a friendly, walking neighborhood. It's safe. I feel very safe letting my 12-year-old ride her bicycle around. People walk their dogs, and houses are not right on the street. All the houses on Myrtlewood are lined up at about the same distance from the street. So Mr. Sheridan's variance would be a blight on the neighborhood. It would change the character of the street. The other thing I'm concerned about, quite frankly, is guarding the heirloom trees. I believe that an old magnolia was torn down already. So I want to make sure that the city of Mobile ensures that Mr. Sheridan follows all of the regulations about taking care of the heirloom trees.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Ms. Tucker from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think that we may need to try to make something clear, and the staff will have to correct me if I'm incorrect. I believe that the neighbors' opposition to this is that they think that the house is going to be built 10 feet off the road. And I think what has happened here is that when the applicant came in for subdivision, the planning commission stole land like they like to do and required additional setback because it was a substandard width street. And so the setback the variance that he's requesting is 10 feet off of the newly expanded right of way, but that the homes will be built in the same location as the home that was there. I believe that's my understanding, and if staff can or the applicant can address that, but I think that the people that are in the waiting room or in opposition need to understand that they're not asking to build the home any closer than the ones that are already there. Is that a correct analysis on my part?
I'm not entirely sure because there have been some properties that have also gone through the subdivision process in the planning commission and have also been required to dedicate right of way and then have not required a setback variance. So, so there is a difference there. It is going in line with the existing house, or if the variance is denied, it would still be in keeping with the neighborhood as far as the setbacks go, as other houses haven't had to get this type of a variance request.
So if it will be set back 10 feet further than the one that was there, or the existing ones along that street.
Well, yes, it will be. The only houses that have received setback variances, there's one diagonally across the street where the house is set far back on the property. And then if you go up Myrtlewood on the west side, the second house north of Stein Avenue. But both of those setbacks were for side and rear yard. None of them were for front yard setbacks.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Davis.
Yes, sir. My question for clarity at this point is whether or not Mr. Metcalf's analysis is correct. Then can you answer that, Mr. Bird or Ms. Marie? Can you all answer the question? Does he give a correct analysis?
Bert, this is Brett. Would y'all like me to chime in?
Yeah, I was getting ready
Go
to
ahead.
have Mr. Earl, if you'll tell us the placement of.
Yes. So I guess in two parts. Mr. Metcalf, what he was stating is what I was stating before. So the setback as shown lines up with the original existing house on this property. In terms of the properties adjacent to, I believe there have been some dedications and setback requirements on them in the past. So it would be, so in terms of trying to answer it clearly, the proposed setback is at the original location of the original home. In terms of the adjacent properties, I don't have my computer in front of me right now, but I would say that they sit a little bit further back than this one is proposed. So they're not in line, so to speak.
Okay.
What's the city's recommendation?
Staff has recommended this application for denial.
Yes.
Bert, what's y'all's recommendation?
As Marie said, this is recommended for denial by staff.
Okay, I'm sorry, Marie, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'm back to my original specific question. My colleague analysis, is it correct? Yes or no?
So the answer is that as the variance is being presented, the proposed front of the house that will face Myrtlewood would be in line with the wall of the existing house that's on Myrtlewood. So that is the proposal. But what's happening is because of the right-of-way dedication, the edge of the right-of-way is moving closer to the facade.
So this house, the previous structure was 25 feet or more from the road, but as part of the subdivision, they've had to give up, as part of the right-of-way, an additional 10 feet or so.
They have had to give up right-of-way. I think that this house was closer generally to the edge of right-of-way than some of the other houses along the street. So the variance that's being requested is that that same physical proximity of the new houses to Myrtlewood would be the same as the physical proximity of the house that is or was on the property.
Okay. Mr. Davis, are you clear on the answer?
I'm clear. I do believe, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate this, but I think that have some monumental opposition to this request, and I think as a board we owe it to the applicant to make certain we are being peripherally fair to him. And if my colleague, as he has lifted the misunderstanding that may be involved here, I think in all fairness, we should look at this from the applicant's perspective as to whether he would want us to hold it over so that he can get with the opposition to make certain that they understand where we are.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to allow the other individuals that are present today for the meeting to voice their comments, and then we'll go back to the applicant for that discussion.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Marie, you've got two others.
We have Fred Helmsing next to speak. Mr. Helmsing, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Okay, Mr. Helmsing, Can you give us your name and address, please?
Yes, sir. My name is Fred Helmsing, and I reside at 3443 Stein Avenue. I'm right around the corner from this property. Yeah, if you can see, this is my home where my cursor is on the screen there. And my thoughts would echo what's been previously said. I guess the one point I would make is that there are defined requirements that an applicant has to show in order to be entitled to a variance. This is a very significant variance in light of the character and the circumstances of the neighborhood. And I don't think that as things stand today on the record before y'all that the necessary showings have been made. These rules exist for a reason, and we should stick to the rules in order to make sure that the neighborhood continues to have the same character and continuity that it's had previously.
Okay. Now, one of the issues, as Mr. Metcalf has expressed, is that these structures may, and that'll be for the applicant's rep to clarify, may be in line with the existing structures if it had not been for the planning requirement to provide additional easement for the setback, that these may have been in line and in character with the neighborhood. We're unsure as to the exact location. So that's one of the things we have to sort out today.
Yeah, I believe the home that was there has been demolished. So it was a single home, and these subdivision plans call for the construction of 2 homes. But I agree, that's one thing we'd all have to figure out is exactly where that is in relation to what is being proposed.
Right. Do you remember how close the previous structure was to the street?
I was afraid you were going to ask me that. I do not personally remember that. It's funny how you can drive past something hundreds of thousands of times and not recall it precisely, but I don't.
Well, Ms. Tucker mentioned some trees that might be impacted by this development. I understand that's not necessarily our purview today because it's primarily the setback, but her concern was some existing maybe heritage trees or something like that, and then the drive. So your opposition is primarily the setback and that the hardship's not presented by the applicant. Is that my understanding?
Yes, sir. I think that's a fair summary.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Metcalf.
Hey, Fred, given what we're talking about here, would you, I know you don't speak for everybody, you're speaking for yourself, but would you be opposed to this if it were clarified to you that that he's trying to build the home any closer than what was there before?
Yeah, I think that would be important information. I would like a little time to think about it before I could give you an opinion right now. But I think that's certainly something that I would want to know for sure before I could arrive at least as of an informed opinion as I'm capable of putting together.
Right, Mr. Chairman, and everyone involved, I'm not advocating for this whatsoever. I just believe that the neighbors don't understand or have not been, well, they don't deal with these issues every day and look at these like some of us do. So I think there's some misinformation. It's not misinformation, it's just a misinterpretation of it. And I know we're not at this point, but I don't think it's fair for the neighbors to be working off of inaccurate assumptions. So I'm kind of with what they said before about the developer calling some sort of neighborhood meeting or calling or emailing or something, and so it can be explained because I just worry, these are people's neighborhoods, and I just want all the information to be available to everybody.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Metcalf.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. York, we have one other, Mr. Hemsing, thank you. Ms. York, we have any other individuals in the waiting room?
We do not.
All right, thank you. Let's go back to the applicant for any rebuttal and comments. Mr. Orrell?
Sure. Yeah, so listening to everyone's comments, what I would recommend first and foremost is that I get with the developer, and what I would suggest is that we mark where the proposed location would be. I know there's some confusion as to where that is. I think physically seeing it is one thing. So obviously, once maybe he can call a meeting with the neighborhood, set a time to meet on site, look at that, and then from there, determine, if that satisfies conditions or it does not, and then be able to address it at the next meeting. So, based on what I heard there, would like to, communicate that to him. And then from there, us have an opportunity to get with the adjacent homeowners.
Okay.
So I'd request a holdover.
Okay, and I think that would be wise, as Mr. Metcalf has stated, there may be some clarification, and if you could survey and stake it out, they might have a better understanding of how this fits in with the neighborhood. All right.
Mr. Chairman, quick question.
Mr.
One thing that may be relevant is how far the homes to the, I suppose that's the south across the unnamed right of way, how close they're currently sitting. Yeah, and maybe they're outside of the 25 foot as it sits, but anyway, I think it'd be relevant.
Yes, sir.
We're going to hold over. Let's maybe identify those distances.
All right. The applicant's rep, Mr. Earl, has requested a formal request for a holdover. And we've had opportunity for those in opposition to speak, and there may be some need for clarification. So Chair will entertain a motion for a holdover.
So move, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion to hold over. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, Ms. York, if you'll clear the waiting room and bring in our next applicant's rep and those of interest. This is, well, let me make sure I get this. This is number 7 regarding 508 Georgian Drive.
No, Mr. Chairman, this is number 6, Eric Eckhart.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead, didn't I? I apologize. You are correct. The application 6375, and this is for 5535 and 5575 US Highway 90 West. And Ms. York, you're admitting our applicant's rep?
Correct, sir. I have admitted Eric Eckert to speak.
Okay, and do we have anyone in the waiting room in favor or opposition?
No, sir. He is the only person signed up.
Okay, and did we have any communications regarding this application?
No comments were received regarding this request.
All right. Mr. Eckhart, are you able to hear us?
I am. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Your name and address for the record, please.
Eric Eckhart, 5725 Fox Ridge Drive, Mission, Kansas 66202.
Okay, and the staff's recommended for denial. Do you want to tell us why the board should consider otherwise?
Yeah, so Maria, if I can defer to you on my first question here, have the board been informed of our updated request, or was it appropriate for me to go through that in detail?
I did send them an email with the revised packet that you sent earlier, but it would probably be beneficial just to go over that.
Yes, sir, please.
Okay, sure. So actually, this screen you have here will be perfect if you all can see that. So as noted in the staff report, we really have 2 separate requests here. One, to increase the total number of signs we have on this property from the allowable 3 to a total of 13. And then under the same application, but kind of a separate request, is for the construction of a high-rise pole sign outside of the limits of the 1,000 linear feet from the center line of I-10. In talking with Ms. York this morning, we have requested to revise our request slightly and modify the total number of signs from 13 down to 8, with the removal of a total of 5 of these signs from the request. And if you guys can read this okay, the site, at least on my screen, is sideways here. So there are a total of 3 signs on the current proposal. There are a total of 3 signs on our building. There's the name Quick Trip centered up right kind of where the cursor is there, and then there are 2 identification buttons with the QT logo on both sides. We have removed both of the QT logos from the sides of the building and kept the Quick Trip logo there in the center. And then on the diesel fuel canopy there, directly behind the store, again where the cursor is at, there are 2 identification buttons on the side of that. Both of those have been removed. And then on the side of the building, the north side of the building, sorry, it's telling me my internet connection was unstable. There's an ice kiosk, which is a dispenser for customers to get bags of ice, fill up coolers with ice, water, etc. There's a logo on that currently with the QT brand. That logo will be removed and simply read ice and water and be under the 20 square feet requirement. So that is also removed from our request. And then in addition to that note, I guess there's a total of 8 signs being requested. I just note 2 of these are temporary in the manner that they will be a banner cover on the high-rise sign. Should we construct that sign, it's done early in the process of our project and typically is up several weeks and or even months before the building itself is finished and the site's set to open. So our intention with those banners is just simply to put a coming soon or open soon rather sign on those, just to help the public understand that we are not yet open for business there. And again, those would be
how about you focus on it looks like you'll end up with 6 permanent signs at the end of the project. Is that right?
That's correct. So there will be
where those would be and what the justification is.
Sure. So I started with the building there. There's the one sign there that again reads Quick Trip. It's located right in the center of the building. Pretty much just your standard identification sign for a commercial building that you're used to seeing, throughout time. There you go. Yep, perfect. So that is just our standard corporate sign there. That'd be one of the 6. If you go to the fuel canopy, if you could, there are identification signs. There you go. Just on the side, you can see there. And one thing I did forget to note, in the staff report, there was a comment about the total size of those signs and how they slightly overhang the canopy. We do have an option to reduce the size of those, and we intend to do that so that we meet the requirement should they be approved. Just as an added note. But these will be located on both the north and the south side of the fuel canopy. The intention of those signs is just to allow for traveling public along I-90 to be able to identify the brand Quick Trip and know that our site is coming up, as you typically can't see the building for these properties because they're so far set back from further away in the project. The next one would be probably the monument sign, if we could go to that. This will be out along Highway 90 as well. There we go. Our fuel price sign is your standard gas price sign with the different grades of fuel that we will offer here, priced just again for the public's notification on that. Sorry, I'm losing track here. Let's see, we touched the building, the canopy. So then to the truck fuel sign or the truck scale sign. I think it's the last one in here. This is really just meant to be an informative sign. There was a comment about the logo on that, and we certainly could look at removing the logo. My concern is that it still is over the 20 square feet, but this sign here is just something that is over the top of the truck scales that the semi trucks will pull in and weigh their trucks on after fueling to make sure that they meet DOT traveling requirements. It's simply meant to be an informative sign so those trucks know where to go in order to conveniently access those scales and not be circulating the site and conflicting with the car customers in front of the site. Again, something you could look at removing the logo from, but the size is more than 20 square feet.
Mr. Eckhart, based on your description so far, I see that there's an actual sign on the main building, and then you've got the high-rise sign, and then you've got a sign on the, I guess it would be the entrance pylon or whatever you want to call it, that actually describes the name of the company. The rest of them are logo signs. Is that correct?
That's correct, except I guess, this diesel truck scale sign, if you would qualify that as a logo or not. It does have our logo on it, but that's just because the brand of the scales we use is a Quick Trip brand scale. So it's, at some of these locations you see the more familiar like CAT scales. It's just QT brand scales. That's all that is there.
Okay. So the brand is pretty much what you're seeing on everything except for the QT for the others.
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time? You kind of cut out on me there. I lost a connection.
Okay, I call the logos and the brand are one and the same.
The QT logo and the Quick Trip brand on the building are essentially one and the same, if that's what you're asking.
Correct. Okay.
You own the TV.
Okay, so we have Quick Trip only spelled out on the building. Is that my understanding?
That's correct. Those two QT logos will be removed from our request.
Okay.
To reduce the total. Yep. Those two QT logos were part of the original 13 and are no longer part of our request today.
Okay. All right. Can we? Yeah, there we go. Any questions of the board for Mr. Eckhart? Okay, my thought is that
I'm just going to ask
Mr. Golden, the QT logo brand is very similar to some of the other applications we've had from other fuel vendors.
I've been in a Zoom meeting.
And in line with some of their branding efforts that we've seen with some of the other applications. Anyway, Mr. Golden, you had a comment or question?
I did. So we're talking separately about the tall sign and the building signage?
I would say so.
Okay, so right now we're just talking about building signage.
Signage in general, total number.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments from the board? All right, my point was that we've had Chevron and some of the others that have used their branding and that it was a requirement when they redid their structures, modernized. And this seems to be somewhat in line. The applicant's down to 6. They're allowed 3, is that my understanding? Maria or Bert?
Yes, sir, that's correct. And they reduced the number requested from 13 to 8.
Right, and eventually 6, because 2 of these are temporary.
Yes, sir. But they are, the temporary signs that they are requesting do not comply with the standard allowances for temporary signage.
Okay. What
If I
about,
could,
yes.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, if I could chime in, since we are just focused on the total number of signs, I know we'll cover the high-rise signs separately, but if it affected the consideration, we'd be happy to remove the request for those open soon temporary banners as well. I touched on briefly, but the only intention in those signs is to help the general public know that the location's not yet open. So
how long would those be posted?
In the application, I proposed 30 days, but it's really dependent upon the construction schedule. When we do have that sign finished, like I said, it typically, when we build these signs at the travel center locations, they get constructed before the location's ready to open. and you see the logo up in the air there, and if it serves the intent we have of pulling traffic off I-10, you could run into a situation where people are exiting the interstate thinking we're open and then get down to the site and are frustrated that it's not. So,
right. Yeah, I would be one of those people.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just for information, there is a Love's under construction at exit 10, which is 7 miles to the west, and they have one of those. Their tall sign, probably the same as this one. It's out of the city limit, but it has the opening soon.
In a Zoom meeting, I'll call you as soon as it's over.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So consistent with that.
Right.
That's correct.
Marie or Bert, when we've approved banners for other events like downtown Mobile, what was the limitation on the banners? Is it 60 or 90 days? Like Mobile Museum or something.
But however, those signs, I don't think were quite as large as what these signs are currently proposed to be.
Well, I'm just thinking from a temporary standpoint. What was the limitation we've established in the past? Seems like it's 90 days max.
I believe it was.
Okay. All right. And then, Mr. Eckhart, you want to tell us why the 150-foot tower sign needs to be considered high rise?
Yeah, so the request actually is a little bit confusing. I apologize, because we had initially put in a request for a 100-foot tall sign. We did some additional research on the sign, and what we did was we went out to the site and flew a drone up in the air and looked at all directions, north, east, south, and west, and took photos. And I put together a PDF of a PowerPoint that I had sent. I don't know if that's been able to be reviewed or not, but there were a couple of images there from that drone that you could see. We are comfortable with the request for the 100-foot tall sign rather than the 150-foot tall sign, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 100-foot height is allowed by code if you are within 1,000 feet from the center line of the interstate, which I understand we are not here, but and just trying to conform a bit more with code, we do believe the 100-foot tall sign will get us what we are needing here. But the intent of this sign, as I briefly touched on, is to advertise the location to the traveling public on I-10. It's noted in the staff report that visibility to Highway 90 and the signage there will be adequate, and we certainly agree with that. But with these type of sites and being a travel center that services these over-the-road diesel trucks, a big portion of the success of these sites for us is that we are able to advertise that fuel price and from a good distance away. So with the construction of this 100-foot tall sign and getting some visibility from the I-10 interstate before the exit to Highway 90, these trucks then, one, know that we're there, two, know what that fuel price is, and three, of course, know where to exit and access our location. It was mentioned earlier that there's a Love's going in just outside of the city limits here, similar sign request, and similar to those signs you've seen if you're familiar with a Love's location. But the intent really is to be able to advertise to the public that's traveling that interstate and something more than just a standard trailblazer sign that you see along highways, so that these drivers have adequate time to know that we're there.
Okay, any questions of the board for the applicant regarding the 100 to 150-foot sign? Bert or Marie, we've approved some signs in this general area in the past. What was the height of those signs? Were they 100 foot or 150?
Neither. The only height for a sign that's been approved in this area was for a 45-foot sign, which is taller than the standard 35 that would have otherwise been allowed.
How about Arby's or?
It was for Arby's. It was originally denied, and then it came back and got approved at 45 feet.
Okay.
And our intent here too, if I can just add on, is there are several signs on the north side of the I-10, I guess, portion of Highway 90 with taller signs, and I don't know what those exact sizes are, but we're really looking for something similar to that. And I understand that again, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. York, but I think it was 2009 when the code was put in. Several of these signs may have been constructed prior to that, but as far as what we're looking for here, that to kind of give you an idea.
And part of it was
Right,
the annexation.
those signs were probably there prior to annexation.
That's correct.
Okay, any other comments or questions of the board for the applicant? Okay, staff's recommended for denial. The applicants reduce the number of signs they're requesting with 6 permanent and 2 temporary, more or less banners to identify that they'll open soon. And possibility of reducing the height of their high-rise sign to 100 feet if necessary. Is that correct, Mr. Eckert?
That is correct.
Okay. And the hardship is the visibility with the trees and other. I've had the opportunity to review your PowerPoint, and I think your drone footage and some of the shots kind of give a better impression as to the visibility issues. All right, Chair, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I move to approve the application with the following conditions. And the approval is for the 8 total signs, 6 permanent, 2 temporary. The smaller canopy signs on the fuel canopy that don't extend above or beyond the top or the bottom of the canopy. No logo on the scales or fuel exit sign along Coolman Road. And removal of the 2 QT logos on the north and south side of the facade of the building, and then a 100-foot sign primary reducing 150 to from 150 to 100 on the tall sign.
Okay, and the time limitation on the temporary?
I don't think it's necessary. I don't have one. They're gonna move as soon as they can, so I'm not worried about that.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion with a second with conditions. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right.
Ask one quick question in regard to the condition.
Yeah.
Yes.
On the truck scale, I noted the no logo is the size of that being greater than 20 square feet approved with those conditions.
Yeah.
You caught that note when I said I was, okay. I just wanted to confirm. Thank you very much.
All right. If you got any further questions, get with the staff and they'll assist you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. Marie, if you'll clear the waiting room and allow our next applicant. And what is this application number? I somehow got out of order. Ms. York?
It is
It's
application.
6376.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
6376.
6376.
Oh, it's not on here.
Yeah, it's not on here. That's the reason why I was wrestling to find out what the number was. All right, and have we invited the applicant into the waiting room?
I have admitted Eric Jackson to speak on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, and do we have anyone of interest to this application today in the waiting room in addition to Mr. Jackson?
I have one person who I am not sure who they are. With your permission, I can admit them to see.
Well, who is it? What's the logo?
The last digits are 2439.
2439. Because we found out just about 5 minutes ago that the big D that was in the waiting room was in fact Henry Cush. But by then the board had already voted on the application to hold it over until May.
Okay.
I asked him several times who he was, but I guess he never responded. So
All right, so Mr. Jackson, have we had any communications regarding this application?
No, sir.
Okay.
No one in favor or opposition.
Mr. Jackson, are you,
Yes, sir.
your name and address for the record, please?
This is Eric Jackson with Row Engineering, 3502 Laughlin Drive. We are handling the variance application and the civil site plan. We are in agreement with the staff's recommendation. Just the only thing I just wanted to clarify, it was engineering comment that asked about mentioned the curb cut out in the right of way. I wasn't sure if they thought it was proposed or what, but just want to clarify that is existing, and there's no work proposed in the right of way or in the front area of the site.
Okay. All right. Any questions of Mr. Jackson from the board? Staff's recommended for approval subject to the conditions. The applicant's in agreement and clarified that the curb cut is existing. And staff has informed us that we have no one in the waiting room, either in support or opposition today, and no communications regarding this application. Therefore, the chair entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Application is approved with conditions as listed. Any other business today?
I believe that your next meeting will be in person.
Yippee.
Am I gonna have to shave?
So,
Yeah, sorry to tell you that, Mr. Golden. Well,
do
that's
not
up
have
to
to
you.
shave.
All right. Mr. Anderson, anything for the board from any appeals or any complaints? Did we lose Mr. Anderson?
It does appear that he has left the meeting.
Okay, I would take it that we have nothing to report today. All right. This concludes our meeting. Everyone have a good day and see you in person next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your patience.